Alright, Shalom. I want to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Shemel Shabbat Shem Kakodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to all the Akim that pushing the word of sincerity and truth. Now, of course, as you see on the title, you white women aren't innocent from judgment. The so-called white man, which is the main culprit of wickedness. He has a tag team duo, or really a trio, so to speak. The white man, the white woman, and the black woman. They all work in cahoots. And then, a lot of you black men too, you push the notion or the agenda of the so-called white man, and so-called white man uses you black men and black women to further push his agenda. But it's dealing with, in terms of slavery, one of the main supporters of slavery also was the goddamn white woman, man. These white women, they try to play the image, push out the image that they was always in the shadow of the background when slavery happened. You watch these different shows and different movies, you always try to see, the main thing you see is the white woman seeming as an innocent being, and Jake basically being a beastly people. When you watch these different 1800, 1900 films, you see the white woman in her, big, robust dress, hair, detailed, detailed design, and them in the house, and they might go out and, basically they might be amongst certain black children, and they might be amongst black women, like you even see in this pic, and it might just show her getting her hair done, or things of that nature. You had white women that were worse than white men in slavery, man. They would beat the the black women and black men. They would actually torture them. And I have this article which I'm gonna go into right now on the Vox. It says how white women's investments in slavery has shaped America today. White women are sometimes seen as bystanders to slavery. A historian explains why that's wrong, and it's by Ann North. It's dated on August 19th. But it says, in the American South, before the Civil War, white women couldn't vote. They couldn't hold office. When they married, their property technically belonged to their husbands. But as historian Stephanie Jones Rogers notes, there was one thing they could do just as white men could. They could buy, sell, and own enslaved people. In her recent book, they were her property, white women as slave owners in American South. Jones Rogers makes the case that white women were far from passive bystanders in the business of slavery, as previous historian argued. Rather, they were active participants, shoring up their own economic power through ownership of the enslaved. Right, so they were active participants, and you had slave houses, slave quarters that were mainly owned by white women. And they would put Jake in the field to constantly work till the ground, rigorously. They actually had a hand in black women being raped. Black women actually intermarrying, so to speak, with or I would say forcefully bred, to marry, and a lot of times it was incest. You watch these different movies, you see they would actually commit incest for the in hopes of having a pure stock or a stronger gene, and they will intermarry, because the so-called white man and white women believe in that. So when slavery is enacted, when the Israelites are in power, and we actually have our hands to press down on you nations, it's not just going to be the men that's going to get the peculiar ass whooping, man. You goddamn white women too. That's why the scripture says slay old men and women, because women know how to play the role of feminism, which is a certain role, that they try to play, or I would say effeminate, because now in today's time, feminism is the new masculism. But they would try to play a role of effeminate or feminine, And that would, a lot of jakes would see that and they would give women a pass, not knowing a lot of these goddamn women are more vicious than men, man. You know, they're bloodthirsty, vicious, cruel beings, man. But I'm gonna continue on. It says, in the past, historians have often based their conclusions about white women role in slavery on the writings of a small onset of white Southern women. But Jones Rogers, an associate professor at the history at the University of California, Berkeley, drew on a different source. Interviews with formerly enslaved people conducted during the Great Depression as part of Federal Rights Project, an arm of the Works Progressive Administration. These interviews, Jones Rogers writes, show that white girls were trained in slave ownership, discipline, and mastery, sometimes from birth, even being given enslaved people as gifts when they were as young as 9 months old. Yeah, and you see these different shows, you'll see a little girl, and she might have a black child around the same age. She might be as young as 8 or 9 years old. The child might be 6 or 7. And what does the girl have? A noose around the child's neck. And she might be walking her around the big house, as property, so to speak. And like I said, by and by they will actually get there. The birthdays might come up. They might get 3 slaves here. They go from actually having them cooking and cleaning, to doing their hair, to the point where they actually owning property, to the point they have hundreds of slaves, man. Or dozens of slaves. And if those slaves aren't compliant, then they would crack the whip on them. And they were more vicious than men, because you got to always remember that women, if a woman drops her edge, so to speak, then what happens? A man naturally is going to take advantage of that. So they will fortify themselves and make themselves even worse than men, so that those slaves would know not to test the odds, because if they were, then they would be actually put to death. You see? And it's a lot more in this article. This is definitely a good read. I actually haven't read the whole thing myself, but I want to sit down and, pick the meat from the bones out of this article, because it's definitely has a lot of insight. In today's time, Jake tries to accept these goddamn white women, man. These white women are the devil too. Just like the white man. That's why the scripture says what? In Sirach, the 12th chapter, to never trust your enemy. Your enemy isn't just the white man. It's the white woman too. Just because the white woman might be at your job, she might give you cookies. You might need a ride home from work, and she might volunteer to take you home. That doesn't make her that doesn't make her friendly. That doesn't mean you should befriend her. You have to beware. That's why the scripture says to beware of basically the tricks and the vices of the enemy. And a lot of these white women are only friendly because they're just as broke as you. But if they was in a position of superiority, if they had resources about themselves, then they would push for and advocate slavery. Their whole mindset would change, you see? Because your mindset is based upon how much money that you actually hold. If you're poor, then you're going to have a certain mindset. And that deals with all people, man. So this is Job 20:8. He shall fly away as a dream, and shall not be found. Yea, he shall be chased away as a vision of the night. And that's talking about the so-called white man basically being chased out of the earth. You had Stephen Marley. He had that song, Chase Them, Random Politician. And that's how we're going to do Esau. We're going to chase them from out the face of the earth. Scripture says he shall be as a chased roe in Isaiah the 13th chapter. When prey becomes predator. As the saying goes, there's no fun when the rabbit gets the gun. And we represent the rabbit. We have always been the one that were chased down and beat, mocked. But guess what? The rabbit is going to get the gun, and it's going to be the full control is going to be in our hand through the power of Yahweh Shema Shai. So it says, the eye also which saw him shall see him no more, neither shall his place any more behold him. His children shall seek to please the poor, and his hand shall restore their goods. Right, so they're going to seek to please us, and definitely the white women in that time. And how does a woman please a man? Through the act of sex. You know, rubbing your feet, giving you massages, speaking well to uplift you. You know, but guess what? The whip is gonna be cracked on you women too, man. Cause hey, that's pure retribution. And the Lord said He's gonna put His Spirit in us to push out the fullness of His anger. You know, there's not gonna be mercy in a day. That's why the Scripture says to slay old and young. That's these old ass white women. You know, 80, 90 years old, all the way to the young child. So judgment is right around the corner, and we always have to keep our eyes open, of course. So I want to end by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Shema, Shabbat, Shem, Kakodash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom Akim.